What's up, punks? I figured I would make another response to P226. As far as Civil War, Nazi Germany, economic collapse, run for the hills, run for your life. Not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying that it hasn't happened in history several times before. Both of those statements are false. It is possible. It has happened in history before. And I would even go so far as to say it probably will happen in America in the next however many generations, 1,000 years from now, 1,000 days from now. I'm just saying that these things are impossible to predict the timing of. And I think the problem that you run into when you start having it's going to happen in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, the next 15 years, the next 20 years, the problem that you run into with that type of thinking, and I'm coming from experience because I've been in that type of thinking, is that it causes you to do things that you probably shouldn't do. It causes you to make emotional decisions. I recall back in 2010, a year after the stock market recovered from the worst collapse it ever had in my lifetime. I'd say the Great Depression was the worst collapse it's ever had, but the worst collapse in my lifetime was 08, 09. And then it started to recover. And there was this guy, Gerald Celente. I don't know if you ever heard of him. Fucking clown. Total fucking clown. But he made his bones by making correct predictions. Now, how do you make correct predictions? Let's talk about how you make correct predictions. It's very easy to make correct predictions, believe it or not. You just keep saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again for days and days and months and years until it actually happens. And then you sit back and you say, I told you so. See, here's video footage of me saying this is going to happen. Problem is, you've been saying it's going to happen for the past 11 years, and you've been saying it's around the corner. It's right around the corner. The stock market's going to go down. The housing market's going to go down. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. Gold and silver is going to go up. There's going to be social unrest in the country, blah, 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 blah. And I know the popular reads right now are like the fourth turning and all that. I understand all that. I've read all the same shit you have. I'm just saying that when you believe this stuff is right around the corner, you start making excuses for why you don't live your life. I remember back in 09 when I first got married, I told my wife, I said, I don't want to have kids. She's like, why? She's like, what's the change? Like, you always wanted kids. I said, I know, but I think, I like the stock market decline. I got married in 09. I got married right after the stock market actually recovered. May of 2009 is when I got married. And I thought, well, that was scary. I don't want to see this happen again. So let's hold off on having kids. Why? Well, because by 2012, 2012 was the big marker back then. Everybody was worried about 2012. The Mayan calendar's ending in 2012. All these predictions about the end of this, the end of that. Everything's going to fall apart by 2012. Movies were coming out predicting the end of the world in 2012. 2012 was everything. Everything was 2012, 2012, 2012. Just like Y2K. I don't know if you're old enough to remember Y2K. You're probably not. Y2K, back in the 90s, everybody was worried about the 2000 switch and the computers. They had two numbers for the date. They had 99 instead of 1999, 79 instead of 1979, and they had all these software engineers working day and night for years. We got to update all this bank software to say 1999 instead of 99, because what happens when it gets to zero? It could cause a chain reaction, and the supply chain will break down, and this will happen, and that'll happen, blah, 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 blah. I can tell you this, nobody saw COVID coming. Nobody saw it. You might say Bill Gates saw it, or this person. No, nobody saw it. Nobody saw it. And what happened? The supply chain broke down. All this shit happened. All the stuff we thought was going to happen in Y2K happened during COVID. And I'm still here. You're still here. I can still put gas in my car. Is it more expensive? Yes. I can still put groceries in my refrigerator. Are they more expensive? Yes. Look what happened in the 1970s. Look at the ridiculous inflation we got. The stock market went sideways for a decade, and inflation went insane for a decade. Everybody's paychecks didn't move up fast enough to keep up with inflation, so in real dollars, everybody got a decrease in pay. What happened? Eventually, good times came during the Reagan era. People's incomes went back up, and then people started making double, triple, quadruple payments on their mortgages because interest rates finally went down and wages went up. And then people would say stuff like, in the 1980s, they'd be like, oh, homes are selling for $80,000 right now, $90,000. How much did you pay for your home back in 1975? Oh, I paid $30,000 for mine. They'd be like, oh shit, really? $30,000? Like my mother-in-law paid $25,000 for her house in 1982, I think. And it was a dinky little house. But $25,000. You can't even get a car for that now. So, if you kept your head during that time, what would you have done during the 1970s? You would have done what nobody else was willing to do. You would have bought real estate. You would have bought real estate. Because if you could see 20 years into the future, in the 1990s, you'd be like, well, I'm getting it for a steal at 25 grand, 30 grand, 35 grand, whatever. I'm getting it for I don't care if it's at 15% interest. I'm getting it for a steal right now. I think the average salary back then, late 70s, early 80s, was like $25,000, something like that, which was a lot then. I mean, the average annual salary was as much as roughly what the average house sold for. Nowadays, that ain't the case. Nowadays, people aren't, the average salary isn't $400,000. Wages will catch up. Inflation will slow down and wages will catch up. And if you buy something now, if you calm down now, if you chill out now, and just wait it out, just wait it out. That's all you got to do. Wait it out. What else can you do? Really? What else can you do but wait it out? I guess you could lose your head and you could freak out. You could try to hijack the space shuttle and fly to Mars or fly to fucking the moon and start a new colony of your own. But short of those things, like, you're stuck on Earth with what you have. And I'm not saying go out and max out your credit cards. I'm not saying to do that. Be smart about it. But don't put your life on hold because you think the end of the world is coming. And I'm not necessarily saying that you're doing that. I don't know what you're doing. I'm saying that that's what the temptation is to do. The temptation is to put your life on hold when this kind of rhetoric rears its ugly head. Let's put our life on hold. Let's hole ourselves up into our apartments and stock food and stock gold and silver, and we're not going to move on with our lives. We're not going to make new friends. We're not going to get married. We're not going to have kids. We're not going to try to build a career. We're not going to buy anything. We're not going to invest in anything. We're not going to, It's hope that spurs us on. It's hope that keeps us alive. When you lose hope, like they said in Elf, the clausometer goes down. When the clausometer goes down, when people stop believing in Santa Claus, the sleigh doesn't fly anymore. Confidence, belief. You know, you got to believe that we're going to come through this. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, my man. If you believe you're going to come through it, you actually come through it. People say, well, that's false belief, that's false hope. I'm not going to believe in something that isn't going to happen. I'm not going to be stuck out there in the breeze with my ass hanging in the breeze. I'm not going to be the one out there overextended or thinking that nothing bad is going to happen, and then all of a sudden calamity strikes. I'm not saying to not prepare. I'm not saying to not save your money. I'm not saying to not keep guns or knives or golden. I'm not saying to do any of that. I'm saying get yourself a little bit of saving. Get yourself a little bit of knives and guns and golden stuff. Get that stuff. Sock it away. Put it in your closet. Lock it up in your safe. And then once it's there, go out and live your life. That's what helps you go to sleep at night. Your little nest egg. Your little bug out bag. Your little emergency kit. It's wise to have an emergency kit. It's wise to have a plan B. But once you got plan B in place, then go live your life. That's what I learned. You live your life. You don't let the terrorists win. Right now, as far as I'm concerned, the terrorists are the fucking media who's trying to make us think that the world's coming to an end. That's who I think the terrorists are right now. I don't care if it's Fox News or CNN or MSNBC. I don't care who it is. It's divisive. It's bullshit. It's not information. It's a dash of information followed by a barrage of opinion. The first sentence in the story is, this happened today. The next 10,000 sentences in the story is, this is why it happened, this is whose fault it is, blah, 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 if it wasn't for these assholes, this shit wouldn't be happening. News wasn't like that back when I was a kid. News was just facts for the most part. And then you would have one section of the news where it would be like the editorial, where some guy would get on and bloviate about his opinion. That was a section of the news. Now it's all you see. Everything is editorial. Everything is pundits. Spreading fear, pointing fingers. It's almost like they're trying to get us to hate each other. But I'm not so much of a conspiracy theorist to actually believe that. I'm more of a realist in the sense that they're just realizing that this is what makes them the most money, and so they're following the money. They're chasing the money. They're saying fear sells. The two biggest things in the world that sell are fear and sex. So let's give them a bunch of fear on the internet and on the TV. Let's give them a bunch of fear. And then in between, during the commercials, let's give them sex. Fear and sex, fear and sex, fear and sex. So you turn on the TV, it's fear and sex. Fear and sex, sex and fear. Sex and sex, fear and fear. More sex. Fear combined with sex. Scary sex. Sexy fear. That's all it is. It's playing your emotions. Don't watch the news.